Can I sneak between you guys?
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you.
My phone's not in the way, is it?
No, you're good.
Opening up to questions for Coach.
James, a lot of your players have talked this week about tempo on the defense and trying to adjust to it. How do you think they've done with it so far in practice?
Pretty good. It's hard to simulate it on a scout team. It just really is. So we started today. Instead of going 2-minute, we changed the plans up and did a tempo period. Offense versus defense, and not really the way our tempo is. We went fast. We have the ability to do that, although we don't do it very often. So we did that in practice today against the 1 defense and against the 2. Not for very long, but just to get a little bit of that before Saturday. So try to make it a point of emphasis.
James, is there a defensive end that you've coached or maybe have scouted before that reminds you of Sharif Miller and what he brings to the table?
No, not anybody that jumps kind of to the tip of my mind at this point right now. No, I wouldn't say I have anybody right now that I would say.
You're such a creature of habit. I think you've explained that to us several times. Does the whole throwback element to this week change the routine of anything? I see some guys are breaking in new cleats, but is there anything that it's going to take you guys out of your routine whatsoever?
No, I think I might have mentioned this is something I've been kind of looking into, since when I first got the job. I went down in the Spiders office and there was more uniforms for practice. As you guys know, they've been covering the program for a long time, like 5 different colors they wore at practice. The striped pants were down in Spiders' locker room. I want to say he had a blue helmet in the locker room. I mean, it was things that had been discussed kind of over years. So that's kind of when it first kind of started talking. And there was a numbered helmet in my office when I got the job. I think that was from was it Maudie?
You're right.
Yeah. So just kind of started the discussion. And I asked Spider, but for us, obviously it was a change of pace when we first told the team. The only thing really different this week is the last couple Sundays we broke the white cleats out to break them in, but besides that, nothing really new. I do think it's something the guys will be probably excited about on Saturday. It might bring us a little bit more juice at a good point in the season. So I think it'll be fine. It's interesting. We had the quarterback club today, and somebody said their question was, Coach, what are the players most excited about the uniforms? And please don't say the white shoes and break my heart. The white shoes. And I broke your heart. I apologize. But they're really excited about the white shoes. It's like when you're like little and you get a brand new pair of sneakers and you think you're faster. It's kind of like that.
James, you've talked in the past about winning masking things and the offense maybe masking some of the offensive lines things. Does Saquon mask stuff offensively?
Yes.
For the skills?
Oh, yeah. I mean,
and what might those things be that you would have to work on if you didn't have a guy that can do things that everybody else can?
Well, I just think, the thing that I find interesting is a couple things is recruiting matters. Good players help. You can't win at the highest level with just one. You got to have scheme, you got to have development, and you got to have recruiting. And I think that's where a lot of people make mistake. You have guys from an ego perspective, they're just going to out-coach you. And then you have other guys that say, well, I'm just going to out-recruit you. And you have some people that really focus on development. The reality is you got to do all 3 really well. The thing I find interesting is now people say, okay, well, you're having this much success because you have a great player in Saquon Barkley. Well, I could say the same thing for the top 5 programs in the country for the last 20 years. I mean, they've had really good players too. But yeah, I don't think there's any doubt, that you have plays that would go for 5 yards that go for 12 yards. That you have plays that go for no gain that go for 4 yards or go to the house. But I'd also make the argument, we would be a good offense without Saquon Barkley. He makes us different. He gets us into the top 10 or one of the most explosive offenses in the country. And the thing is, that's the scheme, that's Saquon, but that's also the other personnel. Saquon will be the first one to tell you that the offensive line is a big part of that. That the wide receivers are a big part of that. The tight ends, the fact that we're not one-dimensional really helps Joe as a play caller, helps all these things. I'd also make the argument that nowhere across the country is the offense perfect or the defense perfect. We all have issues that we're trying to work through and trying to get better. So yeah, I think, yeah, do great players help? And do they mask some issues? Yeah, but it's for us as coaches that when we come in on Sunday and we grade the film, that we just don't gloss over our issues because we won the game. That we don't gloss over the issues because Saquon made 2 guys miss and went for 40 yards. You still got to correct the issues. So yeah, I think Joe says it all the time. If you would not accept these things after a loss, you better not accept these things after a win. You know, that's what we talk about all the time.
James, what do you mean by juice at a good time?
Well, I just think what happens is say you break the season up into thirds. You got the first couple games of the year where you guys have been working hard all summer and they're ready to play the next opponent, and then you got that middle group of games, and then you got to get to what a lot of college football coaches talk about, that last third, which is playoff football. If you looked at it like the NFL. So yeah, I think, you know, throughout the season, one of the big reasons that we try to keep our approach as consistent as we possibly can is because, you know, as you can imagine, when you get into the meat of the season, the guys start to get physically worn. They get, they're sore, there's wear and tear. Guys can fall into some bad habits of complacency, not coming out to get better every single day. So yeah, I think no different than I'll show them a highlight video in the team meeting, or I'll show them an inspirational video. It's a video that I love. Alan Stein, I think, is the guy who's a public speaker, and it's with it's Curry shooting baskets, and that's a video that I love, talking about, you know, creating championship habits is what it's all about. So my point is you have no idea what's going to motivate or give guys juice or get you to practice a little bit harder or get you to play a little bit harder. It's a guy doing a share Friday night at the hotel. It's white shoes that's different. It's me giving a presentation in the team meeting to get them to practice harder. It's Brandon Smith getting up and tell the team how much he loves them and how much he trusts them and how much he appreciates being a part of the team. All those little pieces are important to sustain what you're trying to sustain and build what you're trying to build. You know, for you to just sit back and think that you can just roll the ball out every afternoon and the guys are going to come out and practice at the highest level, that's not reality. It's no different than teachers and coaches. You got to find a way to inspire them, motivate them every single day to maximize the schemes and the players that you have.
James, talk about breaking the season up into thirds. Got one of those in the books now. Any pleasant surprises or questions that you feel have been answered through those first 4 games and you were a little curious about where you were headed into the season?
I wouldn't say anything specific. I would say more that I think we're playing at a fairly early point of the season. We're playing pretty good complementary football. What happens a lot of times is you may have the defense start out real strong and the offense is still trying to kind of find their identity, or special teams or whatever it is. And I think fairly early on this season, we were able to build off last year's momentum, and I think the offense is playing good enough to win. I think the defense is playing good enough to win. I think special teams are playing good enough to win. And when you're playing in all 3 phases at a fairly high level, don't take me the wrong way. I'm not saying we're playing perfect. There's things that we did not do well on Saturday. But all 3 phases, I think, have shown that we can play well enough to win. And when you do that, then you got a chance to be a pretty good football team. Because there's good football teams that are doing it with just 2 of the 3 components: offense and special teams, or defense and special teams, or whatever it may be.
James, you had 83 points off turnovers last year in 14 games, 56 through 4 this year. Is that kind of what you're talking about with complementary football? And is that a pace that you think you can sustain for the rest of the year?
Well, I think, I don't know if I would necessarily put that into the complementary football part. I would probably put that into us just emphasizing the importance of turnovers. And as we all know, turnovers are so important because they create another opportunity, another scoring opportunity for the defense. They create a scoring opportunity for the offense, or worst case scenario, usually they turn into really good field position. That's where it's funny, because you watched a game last week. Our drive start battle wasn't as good as it normally was because of the turnovers that we had. If you just went strictly off special teams and you took the turnovers out of it, we would have been in really good shape. But I think that falls more into just the emphasis that we put in off-season of turnovers and how that could make us a better defense and make us a better team, and then our offense has the opportunity to capitalize on it.
James, you mentioned taking factors into consideration for preparation, like has this team had a bye week, might they get more creative? Indiana doesn't have a bye week, but they've only played 3 games. Has that affected, maybe looking into last year's film or thinking they might get more creative since they had more time leading up to kickoff at all?
No, because you know, for us, we're still at the point of the year where we're usually using the bowl game from last year. There's not enough games typically at this point of the season where you're only using the first 4 games, because typically those teams don't always match up with what you do. So a lot of times you're substituting a late game or a bowl game to be one of your 4 breakdown games anyway. The one thing that I have a note down that I'm just curious, that I had a note down to talk to Sandy and Phil about on Thursday is, and maybe you guys know, these teams that have had games canceled, how does that affect them with bowls? Are they going to be able to get into a bowl with one less win? I haven't seen that reported anywhere or heard, but I would think now there's going to be some teams with 1 less win that, you know, depending on how many bowls are, you know, are need teams, how is that going to play out? I don't know if you guys, I haven't heard anything about that yet. And it's not like there's only 1 or 2. There's a number of teams that lost the game this year, and they're canceled, not being replaced. So I'm curious about that, but at this point, it doesn't really affect our breakdowns because we're using a lot of the bowls from last season.
Thank you, Coach.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.